This is the second week that we're having these consultations. We've been around Vanua-Levu, but this particular week we'll be in Viti-Levu, on the western side of the island. This morning we've been in Namwa. We have just a number of things that we want to talk about. One, we have our focus. One of the things that we want to do is talk about some of the new laws that have come into place. Secondly, we want to highlight just a few things that we want to stress from what some of the issues that we've seen so far. We want to highlight some of the things that are important to us, and we want an opportunity also to hear from you. We want to hear about if there are issues that you'd like clarified. We also want to know your feedback on our own service as a ministry, how well we have carried out our role. If there are things we have done well, we'd like to know from your perspective. And if there are things that you think we should improve, we also want to know those things. So first of all, from the outset, let me make sure that everybody knows this, that the private sector, businesses, places of employment are very important. Government regards private sector and business as being critical for this country. When you have a strong private sector, everything, well, things get better in our country. And so, you know, a lot of the efforts of government is on trying to make sure that the private sector can be as successful as possible. There's two general principles that we have in our legislations. All the legislations that we have in our ministry. Oh, by the way, from the banner behind me, you'll see the name of the ministry. You'll see the different services that we provide. And at the bottom here, we have the things that we are trying to focus on. Generating employment growth. We want to promote and enforce decent work, very important for us, decent work and productivity. We want to, a lot of our structures are based on encouraging good faith employment relationships between employers and management and owners of organizations to be based on good faith. We want to enforce safe workplaces. Just getting off the road at the bottom here, just now, we're noticing people unloading bags of whatever it is from the truck across the road, and they are lifting 100 kgs at a time. 100 kgs at a time. That is illegal, because the maximum amount that a person is allowed to lift is, do you know? Does anybody know? If you've got people lifting things in the workplace, there's a maximum amount that they can lift at one time. The people across the road there were lifting 4 bags of, what bags of what? Fertilizer. Was it 25 kg per bag? 25 kg per bag. The maximum is, how much? What's that? 25. OHS says you can only lift 25 kg at a time. So it's these kinds of things we have to make sure. Safe workplaces where people follow the rules, and of course, ensuring social justice, making sure that we give to people what the law says that they should have. So there's two principles that I'm talking about. We want businesses to flourish. We want the private sector to do as well as possible, make lots of money. But at the same time, make sure that the people are looked after, that the work is decent and the workplaces are safe. And at the same time, we want more productivity. So all of those things. These things, I believe, are not mutually contradictory. Having a gate OHS compliant work safe does not mean less productive. We believe it can mean greater productivity. Healthy workers lead to more of those things. So those are some of the things that we try to, this is basically our mission statement. What we have here is the mission of the ministry, of what we are trying to do. So as you can see from the, what was I going to say? Oh, there are two basic principles that we always stress. One is that in terms of occupational health and safety, we're talking about managing risks in the workplace, and also in terms of managing conflicts in the workplace. Because you're going to have conflict every now and then between workers and management. All of our legislation is based on the premise that our primary responsibility for dealing with conflict and for making sure that workplaces are safe is the responsibility of the workers that work there and the management that runs the place. If you look through all of our legislation, that is basic premise. For people, those who are primarily responsible for creating the risk, have the primary responsibility for managing it. And those that create are in going to be the cause of the conflict, they have the primary responsibility for dealing with this. And you will see this is why in all workplaces, you know, for OHS, you must have a OHS committee in any workplace where there are more than, workplace, not company, not organization. Any workplace where you have more than 20 workers, you must have an OHS committee. Why do you want that OHS committee to be there? So that both parties can discuss OHS issues, can discuss it and try to come up with ways of addressing it. Right? The second thing that we have is we have a requirement that in any organization, not workplace, but any organization that has more than 20 workers, they should have a committee called the LMCC committee. Labor Management Consultation Cooperation Committee. One of the roles of this committee is for both sides to be able to talk about things that they are unhappy about. If some of the workers feel aggrieved about something, even though you have your grievance procedure in the organization, this committee is also an opportunity for them to talk about these issues and try to resolve them. Both of these committees, our OHS committee and LMCC committee, I think half of the membership is elected by the workers and the other half is given by management. But that's its whole intent. Where you have the risks, where you have the conflict, the primary responsibility for the resolution is in the parties that are in the workers. I hope those principles are clear. I just wanted to re-emphasize that. I don't think that is new stuff for most of you. You're probably very familiar with what I'm talking about. But this idea of resolving things at the lowest possible level is why we make it mandatory that we have these committees in place. So I hope that if you have more than 20 workers in one worksite, you have the OHS committee. If not, you will have the OHS reps in small places. In any organization that has more than 20 workers, you should have the LMCC committee in place. Okay. You will all be familiar with a lot of the, I hope that you are familiar with the rules that we have, some of the laws, some very basic laws that I want to highlight. I've been highlighting around Fiji. First of all is the national minimum wage. Our national minimum wage in Fiji is still, it has not changed. It is $2, you know what the national minimum wage is? $2.68. That is the lowest that anybody can be paid in this country. And that includes even if you hire somebody to come and do some work at your home. You're going to pay them by the hour. You cannot pay anybody less than $2.68 per hour. We've been around to the villages and we've also been telling them that. That's the absolute minimum we would like to see. But over and above the national minimum wage, we have a group of tables here, charts here. Can I have one of those charts? And why I'm going to highlight these charts, because these charts, it is in some of these sectors that we get most of our problem areas. If you look across the top, you see those 10 different sectors. There are printing trade, wholesale and retail trade, hotel and catering, garment industry, sawmilling and logging, road transport, building and civil, manufacturing, mining and quarrying, and security service. So in each of these 10 different sectors, we have things that govern the way in which people are remunerated. And if you look across the top of it, the first thing that it specifies is hours of work. Hours of work in which people are paid normal time. And if you look at the top, in all of these sectors, you can have two modalities of work. One, you can work for 5 days a week, Monday to Friday, and your maximum hours at normal pay should be no more than 9 hours. 5 days, Monday to Friday, you work 9 hours. So the total hours that people should work at normal rate should be 5 days times 9 hours is how many hours? 5 days times 9 hours is how many hours? 45. That's one way in which people can operate. The other one, if people work for 6 days a week, they should work 8 hours a day. So 6 eighths is 48. So these are the two modalities that we have. I have come across countless places where people work 12 hours a day, whether it's in a security company, as a watchman or whatever, and they are paid the same rate of pay from the first hour until the 12th hour. That is illegal. Okay, I hope that bit is clear. That's the first point. The second line talks about the fact that if you are working in full-time employment in each of these sectors, you are entitled to be paid for your public holidays. Public holidays, you don't come to work, but you should be paid. And we have a holiday this on Friday. What's that holiday? Constitution Day. Yeah? So if people work on that day, if they don't work, they will still be entitled to it. And then it specifies in this big thing that you have rates. It identifies different occupations in each sector and the minimum wage that can be paid for that particular sector. You cannot pay lower, but you can pay higher, right? And it is in these wage rates, I think, where were we? We were in Navua today. We just already have some cases there of people paying below these minimum wages. So, for instance, there might be a lot of people here in retail shops, and you find in retail shops, minimum wage for a cashier is $3.12. For a unskilled worker is $2.93. For a watchman is $2.87. So it identifies the minimum rates. For the hotel and catering, for barman it's $3.31. For a laundry hand, $3.12. Watchman, $3.12, and so forth. So these are the minimum rates at which anybody can be employed in any workplace that is covered in those sectors. I think that's pretty clear. That's clear? Okay, good. And then some of you are very familiar with this, but I've gone on this roadshow ever since I became a minister in this ministry, which is now my second stint. And after going around, I realized a lot of people don't even know the things that I'm talking about. So those of you that already know this, please bear with me while I go through some of these issues. Secondly, it gives the provision for overtime. This is what I was talking about. Your normal days, if you're working on a 5-day week, will either be 9 hours per day, or if you're working on a 6-day week, it will be 8 hours per day. When you begin to work number of hours that is above that 9 hour per day or 8 hour per day, then the overtime rates kick in. And a lot of the complaints that we get is when overtime is not paid. We have lots and lots of complaints in all of these sectors where overtime is not paid. And you can see, for instance, in the wholesale and retail trade, it says the first 2 hours is entitled for time and a half, and thereafter is double time. Everybody understands what we mean by time and a half? You all understand time and a half? Okay. You all understand double time? Everybody knows that. I don't have to explain it. But take note of that. If your workers are working 9 hours per day, your normal day, next hour you work them, you have to pay time and a half. Have to pay. You cannot not pay it. You have to pay it. That's a requirement. Plus the double time and so forth. It also lists the minimum requirements for sick leave. If somebody works for a year, the entitlement for sick leave is 10 days sick leave per year. I also received a lot of complaints where people say they are not given, their sick leave is not given to them. But you see, the sick leave here requires a medical certificate, if I'm not mistaken. He has to produce a medical certificate. I think in all the sectors it's the same. For some civil servants, in some places they don't need a medical certificate for 1 day sick leave. But over and above that they need. But there is a requirement for 10 days sick leave. Another provision here for all workers in all of these sectors, the minimum annual leave requirement for workers is 10 working days. This is also an aspect that you find a lot of people come to complain to us about the fact that they are not paid for their annual leave. 10 days annual leave per year, that's 10 working days, or basically 2 weeks of work. There are some provisions for subsistence allowance in 4 different sectors. In 4 of those sectors there is provision for subsistence allowance. There is a provision for night shift allowance in 2 of the sectors, tool allowance and height allowance for the mining and quarrying sector, and also the provision for casuals.
for casuals. A casual worker, according to our legislation, is a person who works one day does not work the following day. A casual worker is somebody probably brought in as a replacement, brought in when needed, but the rate at which you pay a casual worker will be higher than the rate at which you pay a normal permanent employee. Right? If you can see from where you see that says casuals, you'll notice that it says 25% greater than the minimum rates. So if you've got somebody that works in your shop to do a particular job and you pay him $4 per hour, the person doesn't come one day, and you decided to go and get Apanisa to stand in for that person, and Apanisa is only going to work one day, you can't pay that. You have to treat that person as a casual, and you can't pay him the same rate that you pay the normal worker. So that is casuals. You have the requirement, the right also for some split shifts and also bereavement leave. Bereavement leave, people that are working in an organization, they have the right for 3 days bereavement leave for 1 year. Bereavement for somebody passing away, I don't think the legislation specifies who it is that passed away that you can claim. It keeps it open. There are other conditions, of course. You're all familiar with maternity leave. Yes, maternity? Hey, blank look on the women's face. None of you have applied for maternity? We men don't get maternity leave. If there are some men here who got maternity leave, I'm a bit suspicious. But maternity leave, when we had the budget session that came in, maternity leave, the only thing that is going to change is the duration. It's going to increase from 84 consecutive days to 98. Currently, it's 84 consecutive days. But from the 1st of Jan next year, it will become 98 days. 98 consecutive days. You know that under the current maternity leave, the first 3 deliveries is at 100% pay, and the other deliveries after that is at how much? Half the pay. That does not change. The only thing that will change, that will increase from 84 days to 98 days on the 1st of Jan. That's one change. Another change is the introduction of paternity leave. Paternity is for fathers. When the wife gives birth, or the partner. This is not only for wives, but also for partners who have lived together for more than 1 year. I think the Act says that. So if somebody's been in a de facto relationship for more than a year, the male can apply for the paternity leave. That is also at 5 days per year. I think it's 5 days per year. Not 5 days per delivery, but 5 days per year. Yeah, 5 days per year, not 5 days per delivery. So we have the paternity leave, and the other one, new one, is the family care leave. Family care leave. Family is defined as husband or wife, mother and father, and children. Those are defined as your family. But it's the family care leave is not just for people in the family, but also those in your household. So if you have a worker and there are others in the household that are dependent upon them, that worker will be able to apply for the family care leave to go and do something to help out that is needed for that person's family. Okay? So those are the two new leaves that will come in. Both of these leaves will kick in on the 1st of January 2019. We know that the impact of these leaves can have a bigger impact on the cost of business. Means the cost of your business can go up, because obviously you'll have to allow people to go and live when they should be working. It's going to have an impact on your productivity. The only thing that government has given for that, to give some assistance to employers, is the rebate on the amount of money that you'll pay, tax rebate. For the amount of money that you pay during the time that that person is on leave. I think it's 150% rebate. So if you're normally paying $500 to somebody for a week, and on the week that it takes, what do you call this leave? Paternity leave, you'll actually get a rebate of 150% of what you paid. So it'll be as if the money that you paid was actually 500 plus 250, yeah? As if you had paid that person 750 in wages. And I'm sure that will help out in the calculation of your taxes at the end of the year. Well, that's the only assistance that is the assistance that has been given to assist employers for these particular leaves. So that's something that we wanted to make sure that people understood. Those new leaves will kick in the new year.
Naka.